what sounds like fiction but is actually a real historical event. The Great Molasses Flood of 1919. A tank filled with 2 gallons of molasses burst and sent a tidal wave of molasses through the streets of Boston. 21 people were killed. That was funny until I read the last part. The Great Emu Wars of Australia. Ma Jack Churchill, the man with the only confirmed longboat kill in World War II. Guy and his squad did a death march towards the Germans while playing bagpipes. Got captured and sent to a concentration camp. He then escaped, got caught again, and then escaped a different concentration camp. Also, he always carried a Scottish longsword with "Hi Monsieur." There's so much other weird shit he did after the war, and it's amazing to me that he's entirely real. 2020. I'm waiting for the movie 2020, The Gift That Kept Giving. The musical. I feel the only way you could possibly tell the story of this year is through a musical. A psychopath from a reality show ending up in the Oval Office. The Lost City of Pompeii. Start of World War I. Doomsday cult assassination gone wrong until the driver takes a wrong turn, allowing it to go right again. Sets of armed conflict between 2 countries, but those 2 countries have allies. And those allies have allies. And soon Europe is engulfed in war with countries from around the world participating in what was called at the time the Great War, or the war to end all wars. But in reality it was only an appetizer to the all-out destruction and human brutality of World War II. Not exactly historical, but a poodle named Cachi, in Caballito, Buenos Aires, fell from 13 floors and fatally hit 75-year-old Marta Espina, killing both instantly. In the course of the events, 46-year-old Edith Solá, who came to see the incident, was fatally hit by a bus. An unidentified man, who witnessed Edith's death, had a heart attack and also died on his way to the hospital. Louis XIX was King of France for 20 minutes. The shortest war ever recorded was around 40 minutes long. During the Salem witch trials, dogs were also accused of witchcraft. 2 dogs were executed because of it. I don't know if this counts as historical event, because it happened in 2010. But the owner of the Segway company, Jimmy Heselden, died by driving a Segway off a cliff near his estate in Yorkshire. He was trying to demonstrate how well a Segway could stop, but it didn't work out well and he just drove straight off the cliff and into a river. In 1985, Philadelphia police bombed a residential neighborhood. The resulting explosion destroyed 2 city blocks, killing 5 children and 6 adults. The war between the Australians and the ostriches. Edit. It was emus, not ostriches. Emus. The attack of the dead men during World War I. Typhoid Mary. I'm gonna say the Battle of Los Angeles. In the Middle Ages, gays and lesbians would become nuns and monks to avoid persecution. And since religion was a heavy influence in those days, it was seen as noble that they were dedicating themselves to God. They would have special friends, and since no could get pregnant, it wasn't that big of an issue. The Spanish Inquisition. You never suspect it? They gave a 30-day warning, so everyone expected them. The Velvet Revolution. The only recorded successful peaceful revolution that resulted in 0 deaths and transference of power. Moon landing. Pepsi becoming a military superpower for a while. Can you please explain? Pretty sure at one point Pepsi was trading Pepsi with Russia, and I don't remember what it was that Russia was giving in return, but its value dropped, so they gave them some old warships and got Pepsi to be, I think, the 6th strongest military at the time. A surgeon killing 2 people and the patient. Any article on this? This whole post is our unexpected Simonella. My grandpa had his balls chopped off, but he managed to sew it together. The time one man was assassinated and the entire world went to war, eventually leading to the nuclear bombing of Japan. In 1518, there was a mystery plague that caused people to dance to their deaths. There are 3 separate defenestrations of Prague. The World Wars. In 2007, a paraglider got trapped in the updraft of two joining thunderstorms and was lifted to an altitude of 33,000 feet. She landed over 3 hours later about 60 kilometers north of her starting position, having survived extreme cold, lightning and lack of oxygen. That sounds scary. Imagine spending 3 hours in the sky and not being able to get back down. She was unconscious for most of it, thankfully. Elizabeth Báthory killing an estimated 650 young women and servants during their time in power. The time I boned your mo, monsieur. It sounds like a joke, but I really boned your mo, monsieur. I'm sorry, Steve. When you read the real John Brown story, from Kansas to Harper's Ferry, it just doesn't seem real. Fundraising, Canada, clandestine fundraising, religion, asking everyone to join, betrayal by friends, martyrdom, etc. John Wilkes Booth was at his execution. The fact that Ohio and Michigan had a civil war, the Dancing Plague of 1518, the London beer flood on the 17th of October 1814, a vat containing over 610,000 liters of beer ruptured, which caused a domino effect of other vats of beer bursting in the same brewery. As a result, over 1 million liters of beer rushed into the streets of London and destroyed 2 homes, the wall of a pub, and flooded a room where people were gathered for a wake, which led to a total kill count of 8 people. The tale of a cowardly orange man who ran the U.S. for 4 years. London beer flood of 1814. Anywhere from 154,000 to 388,000 U.S. gallons of beer flooded London, killing 8 people. 4 Auschwitz prisoners stole Nazi uniforms and a car. Only one of them was speaking German, so he was wearing the highest rank uniform, monsieur. When they left the camp, they've encountered 2 patrols. First patrol, with some high-ranked guy, just hailed to the monsieur. Second patrol, with 2 low-rank soldiers, told them they can't leave because orders, etc. Guy speaking German started screaming at them so loud and so realistically they just said, "We're sorry. Go ahead." The life of Harriet Tubman. One of the rare examples of someone who is a household name for being a badass who was actually about 10 times more badass than people know about. Things she did other than the Underground Railroad. 1. She financed and recruited for John Brown's Harper's Ferry slave revolt raid. And the only reason she didn't fight in person was she was bedridden with malaria. 2. During the Civil War, she joined the Union Army as a cook, nurse. 3. She somehow class-shifted into a spy, scout, and helped Union leaders plan raids into Confederate territory, and she assassinated several Confederates. 4. She rose in the ranks until she commanded a small raiding force of 300 Union troops from the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry Regiment, the second black U.S. Army unit ever. 5. Her command, Company C, 54th, raided southern plantations, slaughtered slave drivers, and freed captive slaves. 6. In the Combahee Ferry raid, where the 54th freed 700 slaves, she was also in command of 3 Union frigates, and when a Confederate division was advancing on them, she fired broadsides from the 3 naval warships directly into the enemy troops. 7. She survived the war, and immediately turned around and started fighting for women's suffrage. Operation Valkyrie, Canada's biggest, most valuable hezit ever, was a maple syrup heist. Sounds like a stupid short story fiction that someone would write, but it's actually a true event. There was this one time when police officers were habitually murdering innocent black people, and there was an unprecedentedly massive public outcry in opposition. And long story short, now maple syrup bottles can't have images of black people on them, monsieur. The Boston Tea Party, the Egg War. 21 Sikh soldiers fought against 10,000 Afghan intruders and won. It is known as the War of Sarigari, Battle of Karansebes, where the Austrian army just fought itself. It's ridiculous. It's not historical, but I doubt you'll believe me without a link. It was like 20 years ago. In my town there was a shooting accident that was pretty crazy. This woman was practicing with her husband's rifle out in the field or something, and she got a shot off which made its way to the highway and struck a motorist in the head, killing the monsieur. The driver was the shooter's twin sister, who was separated at birth. She lived like 300 miles away and was literally just passing through town to go someplace else when she was killed by a stray bullet from the sister she never knew she had. That's still like the craziest coincidence I've ever heard of. Bulgarian swineherd. King Ivilo the swineherd became a king and won a battle against the trained army of the current king of that time. In a war, Zanzibar surrendered to the British after 38 minutes. Dr. Robert Liston performed an operation that ended up with a 300% mortality rate. He was amputating a leg of a patient. During this he sliced off the fingers of the assistant. They both died of infection. He also slashed the coattails of a spectator, who was so terrified that the knife pierced his vital organs that he died from fright. The moon landing. The real-life army of giants. It happened in Prussia. The king who made it was a pervert and a freak. For some people, religious people, that might be the evolution of humanity. The Battle of Hastings in England, when the king's army marched all the way north and then all the way south in a record time for that period. 2020. The Emu War, a war between Australia and the population of emus, and was won by the emus. Edit. Spelling correction: emu, not emo. Emos are an entirely different thing. Yeah, I know emus. I don't know how that happened, I'm sorry. Dollop fans have entered the chat. When British and German soldiers sat around in a circle on Christmas in World War II and sang together happily. A few hours later, the war resumed. The Battle of Los Angeles. As much as a cop-out as it is, 9/11, so dramatic, tragic, and operatic that if you locked 100 novelists in a room in 2000 and kept them there for 3 weeks, they wouldn't have been able to conceive of this. Tom Clancy wrote something similar years earlier, only the plane crash took out Congress. What part about stealing planes and crashing them makes you think a writer couldn't come up with it? Dramatic and pretty terrible for sure, but if in terms of imagination, it's fairly tame. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.